Welcome to Table Talk with Denise Bowens and BJ Garrett. Honest conversations, biblical truth, and encouragement for everyday faith.
All right. We look at the book of Esther, and basically in the beginning, we see that King Xerxes is, he's powerful. He's got all this money and all the things, and he has decided to have a party. And a short version is he has a party for a very long time. And in that, in his drunken stupor, he wants to bring his wife, Queen Vashti, in front of everyone and basically show her off. And so we discussed
just
that.
a crown.
Do what? Yeah.
I said, and just a crown.
And more than likely, just her crown. Yes. And so Queen Vashti was like, oh, no, I am not doing that. And so then she would not come when she was summoned. And the king was basically embarrassed. And all of his men were like, okay, look, we have got to do something to fix this, because if we don't make some kind of law or kick her out or do something, when we get back home, our wives are going to tell us no about something too. And we can't be having all that. So this is all the Denise version here. Y'all go back and read all the details if you don't remember. And basically, she is told basically she's going to be replaced. And in that, they start searching for another queen. And a lot of time actually passed. I forget the exact time, but it was more than a year had passed. And they wanted to bring in young virgins. And basically, they went through a beauty treatment session, which lasted forever and a day. I don't remember the time. BJ, you remember, or anybody remember how long that was?
It was over a year, I think.
I was going to say it was a year. Each thing that they did took a certain amount of time, and it took right over a year.
Right. It actually says it was 12 months of beauty treatments.
Yeah.
6 months with oil of myrrh, followed by 6 months with special perfumes and ointments. And so this was like a big deal. And the person who was over Esther and her group there, basically, she found favor with him. And he told her, basically, don't change anything. Don't do anything extra. You are the most beautiful one of all, just the way that you are. And so she followed his advice. Mordecai also is Esther's cousin and has basically told her, do not tell anyone that you are a Jew. Just do what they tell you to do. And so she did. And so when she went before the king, it says that the king basically loved what he saw. She slept with him. He made her his queen. The book of Esther is also the only book in the Bible that never mentions God's name. To me, that's one of the most important facts to me, because that's just I don't know, that's just crazy to me. But this is also a book of the Bible that when you're looking, you can see God work in it. All over the place. And so that brings us to basically chapter 3, where Mordecai's been hanging out at the gate, getting word about what's going on with Esther and in the palace. And Haman is King Xerxes' basically right-hand man. And Haman, he has been put in a great position. And when he walks by, people bow to him. But when he goes by, Mordecai never bows. His men bring it to his attention and say, hey, that Mordecai out there, he never bows when you come by. And so Mordecai notices it after it's brought to his attention, and he's so angry. He is furious about it. He also finds out that he's a Jew, and when he finds that out, then his head's basically about to explode. His ancestors, where he came from, I can never say this. I don't know how to say this name. I just guess at it. He's an Agagite. I don't know how you say that, but his group of people and the Jews always clashed. They were enemies. And so anyway, that brings us to where we are now.
I think it's funny. It's his friends. I just hear they're just taunting him. It says, so they spoke to Haman about this to see if he would tolerate Mordecai's conduct. Like, ooh, look at him. He ain't bowing down to you. He don't respect you. It's taunting.
Yeah. just trying to get a rise out of him. All
Mm-hmm.
right, so that takes us, we'll pick up in, we can actually read that verse 6. This is
Yeah.
chapter 3, verse 6. He had learned, they're talking about Haman, he had learned of Mordecai's nationality, so he decided it was not enough to lay hands on Mordecai alone. Instead, he looked for a way to destroy all the Jews throughout the entire empire of Xerxes. So, in the month of April, during the 12th year of King Xerxes' reign, lots were cast in Haman's presence. The lots were called Purim to determine the best day and month to take action, and the day selected was March 7th, nearly a year later. Then Haman approached King Xerxes and said, "There is a certain race of people scattered through all the provinces of your empire who keep themselves separate from everyone else. Their laws are different from those of any other people, and they refuse to obey the laws of the king. So it is not in the king's interest to let them live. If it pleases the king, issue a decree that they be destroyed, and I will give 10,000 large sacks of silver to the government administrators to be deposited in the royal treasury." All right. So first of all, this I just it's so interesting to me because he has because he's furious because someone did not show him respect, and he's angry about it, and he knows that he's a Jew. Um, Haman, he didn't want to just knock Mordecai down, like he wants to wipe out the entire Jewish race. And that's been going on since the beginning of the Bible, hasn't it? It's still going on today. We
I
see it
think it's
now.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I think it's ironic that through this whole little tirade that he has with the king and puffing up the king to do all of this, his dirty work, he never mentions that it's Jews. He says a certain people. Like
Uh,
he holds back information. I'm like, but we do the same thing. We know what to share and what not to share.
mhm.
Like especially when you're talking to somebody and like we've been just as guilty. My husband had a guy that was complaining about something about another guy that my husband said, "I'm gonna tell you right now, that's my friend." And all of a sudden, this other guy's story, he's like, "Oh yeah, well he's a cool guy, or whatever." And it's like, you just hold back what you want to hold back. We're not
Right,
dumb.
right. All right. Also, the fact that Haman buys the king's signet ring and gets to writing up the new decree, which we're going to get into, but Haman doesn't just say, I mean, why isn't it enough just to say we got this group of people that's not following the king's rules and we should destroy them? That didn't do it. Instead, he said, I will pay this money if we can write this new decree. Like, Haman pays all this money to destroy the Jews. I mean, he wants them out of here and he wants them out bad.
Okay, so I have a question, and we should have talked about this maybe because I am confused because I have read this a gajillion times this week. But it says so. Haman says, "I will give 10,000 large sacks of silver to the government administrators." Okay, to be deposited into the royal treasury. But then when you skip down a little bit, it says the king agreed, confirming his decision by removing his signet ring from his finger and giving it to Haman, son of Hamad, whatever, the Agagite, the enemy of the Jews. The king says, the money and the people are both yours to do with as you see fit.
Hmm.
So was it the king's money that he's using to pay to kill the Jews, or was it Haman's money that he paid the king so that he could kill the Jews?
Well, I'm looking at my notes here, and I don't have anything on that other than just talking about how much money it was. Um, well, maybe because I don't know. I have what I was gonna say is if he's giving it to the government and he's giving it into the royal treasury, when Haman is also part of this government, and so I'm wondering if he's saying the people and the money. You spend it how you want, you do with it what you want, and get rid of the people how you want. I don't know. Good point, but I do not know the correct answer.
According
In my
According
Bible
to-
study, it says that he then has hope of acquiring this tremendous amount of money and plunging it. So plummeting it. So anyway, I think that he knew that he would get the money if he got that signet ring and all of that. He would be over it all, and he would have the wealth himself at
Okay.
that
Okay.
point.
That's
All right,
what
Kathy.
Google says. Google says in Esther 3, the 10,000 talents of silver offered to King Xerxes by Haman were intended to be acquired from the confiscated property and assets of the Jewish people after they were killed.
Wow.
Now, that's Google AI.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I mean, he's planning to. I mean, I'm hearing what y'all are saying, and it's still not really registering with me.
Well, it says that they would get the homes and the businesses of all the Jews who would be killed
Right.
through
So
the
what?
decree, is what it's saying here. So he thinks he's
Right.
going to get all of that
He's just going
money.
to get money back. He's going to make more than what he's given because if he
Yes.
kills all the
He's
people.
going to get
Yes.
all that wealth.
Yes.
So
and
here's
it
what
says in
one
there
of
that
my-
they get all their plunder. Mhm.
Yeah, and here's one of my notes says. It says, I should have looked at this before I asked the question, but anyways, it was interesting to me. But it says that the king was not concerned about the money. He basically says, do what you want with it. Keep it, plunder it, and knowing all the things that you ladies have already said. They're going to get all this money from the Jews because they get to ransack everything. And then the king is like, I'm loaded already. I don't care what you do with the money.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, and he is. He's the most powerful man there is, and he has more money than anybody else. But isn't that think about that? Him as a leader, he's a king, and he is just letting this guy do whatever he wants. He's giving him his signet ring, which is a huge thing to give that ring for to be used. Anything that ring would go in, and it had a symbol on it, and that ring would be pressed into the decree that's made. Any law that you make, you'd press that seal onto that paper, and anyone who see it would know that that's got the king's seal of approval, and with that seal it can never ever be reversed. The king himself can't reverse it. Once it's done, no one can change that law. And to just hand that over to somebody and say, here you go. I mean, like, I don't know.
Well, yeah, even later on, spoiler alert, we'll get to this, but later on, the king even says, don't forget, what's already been decreed cannot be changed.
Right. No matter what. Yeah.
It's done.
All right. You want to keep reading? You
Sure.
want? Okay.
So verse 12. So on April 17th, the king's secretaries were summoned and a decree was written exactly as Haman dictated. It was sent to the king's highest officers, the governors of the respective provinces, and the nobles of each province in their own scripts and languages. The decree was written in the name of King Xerxes and sealed with the king's signet ring. Dispatches were sent by swift messengers into all the provinces of the empire, giving the order that all Jews, young and old, including women and children, must be killed, slaughtered, and destroyed on a single
Annihilated.
day. Thank you. This was scheduled to happen on March 7th of the next year. The property of the Jews would be given to those who killed them. It's interesting to me that they planned this for almost a year away. So they have time to prepare, right?
Mhm.
Like this is a massive undertaking. And to but in my mind, I'm like, why, if they're gonna do it, like they're equipped right now, why don't they just kill them? And it goes back to whenever they cast lots. And sorry, I got a note that popped up. And ultimately we know that God is in control of the casting of the lots too. So the thing that just keeps playing in my mind is God's timing is always perfect. And we might think we have these great ideas of timing and what needs to happen and when it needs to happen. I'm really good at that game. But ultimately, God's timing is always perfect. And it may not make sense to us, doesn't have to make sense to us, but in the end, it's God's timing is perfect.
In my study Bible, it says the death decree was against all Jews in the Persian Empire. Thus, it would include the land of Israel. If this decree had been carried out, all of the chosen people could have been exterminated, and God's plan to send his son to earth as a Jew could have been jeopardized. But God's plan cannot be stopped. And that's why this failed. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Again, they were trying to exterminate all Jews.
Right.
But I mean, that's again since the beginning of time.
Yes.
Since sin entered the world, Satan has been trying to destroy the opportunity for Jesus to come into the world.
Yeah.
The interesting note, the letter that decree was sent out, that was sent out the day before Passover, which is the Jewish holiday that they would have been celebrating. And then also, when it said they send it out with swift messengers, it would take, it's estimated that it would take 3 to 4 months for news to reach all the provinces. So it's set for a year, but it would take 3 to 4 months for everybody to even find out about it. And that is crazy. I mean, you think about it as a group of people and just, I mean, all women sitting here on this Zoom right now. What if we got a email tonight that says a year from now on such and such day that people will be coming into our homes, into our cities and our counties and everything, and they are going to be destroying all women in 1 year? I mean, that'd be crazy. Like, first of all, I wouldn't believe it. But then second of all, you know, like just knowing that you're someone's coming out to kill you and that you have all this time to think about it and how you're going to respond and what you're going to do. So, yeah, it's crazy.
And probably just being real, our response is to load up on weapons, right? Bullets. My husband, he thinks he's got to buy bullets every week. Can never have enough bullets. And he's ready. He's ready for the house to come down. But what did they do? They didn't go buy weapons.
Yeah, that's just because they didn't have no bullets right then.
Well, probably that also. But they didn't buy no spears either.
They had weapons. They had their own weapons. All right, look at verse 15. It says, at the king's command, the decree went out by swift messengers, and it was also proclaimed in the fortress of Susa. Then the king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city of Susa fell into confusion. The city of Susa is the capital, and so everyone in the capital finds out about this, and you have probably more Jews that live there than a lot of the places, I would imagine, because that's where you're trading and all the things are happening. But I don't know that for a fact. But they're all in confusion, and there's just a lot of things happening in town. A lot of people scared. There's a lot of talk going on. But the king and Haman, they just sat down and have a drink. Just cheers. And go on with life. All right, anybody got any thoughts or comments before we go to chapter 4?
Nope.
Okay. BJ, you want to read or want me to read?
Okay. When Mordecai learned about all that had been done, he tore his clothes, put on burlap and ashes, and went out into the city, crying with a loud, bitter wail. He went as far as the gate of the palace, for no one was allowed to enter the palace gate while wearing clothes of mourning. And as news of the king's decree reached all the provinces, there was great mourning among the Jews. They fasted, wept, and wailed, and many people lay in burlap and ashes. When Queen Esther's maids and eunuchs came and told her about Mordecai, she was deeply distressed. She sent clothing to him to replace the burlap, but he refused it. Then Esther sent for Hattis, one of the king's eunuchs who had been appointed as her attendant. She ordered him to go to Mordecai and find out what was troubling him and why he was in mourning. So The eunuch went to Mordecai in the square in front of the palace gate. Mordecai told him the whole story, including the exact amount of money Haman had promised to pay into the royal treasury for the destruction of the Jews. Mordecai gave the eunuch a copy of the decree issued in Susa that called for the death of all the Jews. He asked him to show it to Esther and to explain the situation to her. He also asked him to direct her to go to the king to beg for mercy and plead for her people. So the eunuch returned to Esther with Mordecai's message. I'm going to stop there, or you want me to keep going?
Sure. Yeah, we can stop there. All right. So one of the notes I have is as soon as Mordecai learned about that, like he tore his clothes, put on the burlap, and they fasted, they wept, they wailed. And I have a little note that says their grief was as dark and heavy as their burlap. Like they are at their bottom, like they know that they cannot stand up against the power of the king. And I feel like probably as Jews, they know it's. I wonder if they're just thinking like, here we go again. I mean, remember how the Jews got here? Anybody remember how the Jews even got to this province to begin with?
I don't.
No. Uh, so they had been overtaken way back when, like, and they had been their area had already been seized and they had been taken captives years and years ago. And so
This
the
was like
Jews,
the big exile, right? That you're referring to?
yes, yeah. And so here they are. These are descendants of those who were taken into exile all those years ago, and because their parents or cousins or whatever. I mean, that's why we have Mordecai with Esther, is because Esther's parents more than likely were killed during that exile. And so a family member, they take care of each other. And so they're just used to this. You know, they're used to being overtaken. They're used to this happening every so many years. And I just wonder if they're like, okay, here we go again. You know, who's going to die now and what's going to happen? Anybody got anything? No. All right. Where'd you stop?
Verse 10.
Verse 10. Then Esther told Hathach to go back and relay this message to Mordecai. All the king's officials and even the people in the provinces know that anyone who appears before the king in his inner court without being invited is doomed to die, unless the king holds out his gold scepter. And the king has not called for me to come to him for 30 days. So Hathach gave Esther's message to Mordecai. Mordecai sent this reply to Esther. Don't think for a moment that because you're in the palace you will escape when all other Jews are killed. If you keep quiet at a time like this, deliverance and relief for the Jews will arise from some other place. But you and your relatives will die. And this statement, that's pretty much a famous verse right here. Who knows if perhaps you were made queen for just such a time as this? Then Esther sent this reply to Mordecai. Go and gather together all the Jews of Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. My maids and I will do the same. And then, though it is against the law, I will go in to see the king. If I must die, I must die. So Mordecai went away and did everything as Esther had ordered him.
The first thing I love about this is that he's saying, you don't act on this, you don't do something, you're gonna die. You and your people are gonna die. But I love the little snippet of faith that he has. He knows, because he has the Torah, that the Jews in whole are gonna be rescued. Someone else is gonna rise up and fix this. And it reminds me of just the scripture that if I fail to worship, the rocks will cry out in my place. And I have used that so many times, and I never want to miss an opportunity to do an assignment for the Lord. And, Denise is all the time is, be bold, do it afraid. And like, I love that. And yes, it's scary and it's scary. And the reality is you might die doing something for the Lord. That's real. But I would rather, I hope, if I'm ever faced with it, I would rather die doing God's will than live outside of it and allowing someone else to rise up in my place to do what I would have had the opportunity to do.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I love, like you said, it's just a little section right there in that verse 14. And it gets missed because so often we look at who knows, maybe you were made for such a time as this, but we miss that little verse up there where he says, if like, and relief for the Jews will arise from some other place. It's just missed so often.
We're not that powerful.
Right.
His faith in God is amazing.
Hmm.
I
He
mean,
knows he understands God's sovereignty. His will be done. You can be a part of it or you can watch it.
mhm.
Well, I
take
think
place.
ultimately he knows that the Savior is going to come from the Jews. I mean, they know that base little bit of knowledge that's been passed on from generation to generation. And so he knows that the Jews are not going to be wiped out. He doesn't know that he's not going to be wiped out, but he knows that the Jews as a whole are not going to be wiped out. And I just love that faith and understanding of the anticipation of the Savior.
Hmm. I mean, even if we go back to him not bowing at the gate, which is what started all of this,
Yeah.
he didn't bow because he knows that he is not to bow to anyone, no one other than God himself. And so that's what got him into the situation. But he also, like y'all have already said, like he's got strong faith. He has to not bow to begin with at the gate, because in that situation when someone like Haman, who's so powerful, comes by and you're at the king's gate and everyone's bowing and you don't, that just takes a lot to not, even if you love the Lord with all your heart, soul, and mind, but everyone else is bowing, you know it's going to catch up with you, right? You know it's going to come out. And so I think so often we fall to worldly things all the time because we don't want to have to go through the hard, like we're scared to go through the hard stuff, and it's easier just to bow, and whatever that bow looks like for you, if it's listening to the gossip at work or in the family, or if it's putting up with something is not right and being a part of it, just going with the flow, just because that's bowing. We bow all the time to worldly things.
Yep.
Anybody else? What about Ed?
Oh,
Go ahead, Kathy.
I have a question.
Mhm.
So she said fast night and day. Is that because sometimes when they fasted, they would only fast through the day, but not, and then eat after the sun went down? So she's saying totally fast, don't eat anything. Is that why it's
Yeah.
specific?
Yeah, I believe so, because typically that fasting did end. It would begin at sun. It would either, let me get it right. It would end. It would start at sunrise. I mean sunset, and end at sunrise. And so she's basically saying the whole 24 hours. When Denise and I were talking earlier, I was like, we won't even hardly fast for a lunch when we're praying for something, much less 3 days, 3 solid days.
Mm. Right. And she says fast for me, too, like it's not, she understands her role here. It's not fast that he changes his mind, fast that this don't happen, not fast that God shows up, whatever, in any other way. It's fast for me because she knows that this is a time for her to go, that she's realizing, okay, this is why God allowed me to be queen. Again, just another area where God's never mentioned, like Mordecai doesn't mention he's not going to bow to Haman, because, or it's not recorded, right?
Mhm.
But all of these different things. Even, how do you know you're not here for such a time as this? He never mentions God. Then we get here and she says, look, if I must die, I must die. But I think she realizes this is happening and I have been made queen for a reason. Mordecai's correct. I'm here. I've got to do something to stand up for my people.
Well, and just sometimes you got to make a stand, even when it's hard. I think that, especially when it's hard, we have to make a stand for what's right.
Mm-hmm. It's got to be scary though. 3 days she's been praying. And she's just praying that he raises that scepter, and that he hears her words. Because if he doesn't raise that golden scepter, she could be beheaded, killed right there on the spot.
Well, and again, remember, she already knows the story of Queen Vashti, and all of that drama. So,
Yeah.
and she really has no rights at all as a woman in this day and age.
Right. All right, chapter 5.
Go ahead.
On the third day of the fast, Esther put on her royal robes and entered the inner court of the palace, just across from the king's hall. The king was sitting on his royal throne facing the entrance. When he saw Queen Esther standing there in the inner court, he welcomed her and held out the gold scepter to her. So Esther approached and touched the end of the scepter. The king asked her, "What do you want, Queen Esther? What is your request? I will give it to you, even if it is half the kingdom." This king just cracks me up. He's done gave his signet ring away. Do with it whatever you want. Now a beautiful woman walks in, the queen. "What do you want? I'll even give you up to half of my kingdom." I just don't think he's in his right mind, or he's just drunk all the time. I don't know.
I think there's a contrast. I think it shows such extremes from here where he is like just very flippant, and when we get towards the end, I feel like it shows that he kind of mans up a little bit and he leads better and stronger. And so I feel like even like when I share my testimony, like I share some of the ugliest things that have ever happened to me or that I've ever done, because I need you to see the contrast of how good God is, like what change there is. And I feel like right here is like we're seeing what a buffoon he is, so that we can then see that God changes him.
Mm-hmm.
That's my opinion.
Good. What'd you say, Kathy?
No, I was just agreeing.
Okay. All right. Okay, so verse 4, and Esther replied, "If it please the king, let the king and Haman come today to a banquet I have prepared for the king." The king turned to his attendants and said, "Tell Haman to come quickly to a banquet as Esther has requested." So the king and Haman went to Esther's banquet. And while they were drinking wine, the king said to Esther, "Now, tell me what you really want. What is your request? I will give it to you, even if it is half the kingdom." Esther replied, "This is my request and deepest wish. If I have found favor with the king, and if it pleases the king to grant my request and do what I ask, please come with Haman tomorrow to the banquet I will prepare for you. Then I will explain what this is all about." BJ, you got something?
No, I'm sorry. There is something under my house and I can hear it. It is freaking me out. I was texting my husband. I'm sorry.
You got a raccoon or something running under there.
I got something that is he thinks it's a cat. I think it might be an armadillo. We get a bunch of armadillos out here. But like I can hear it like trying to get under my house. Sorry. I'm
No problem.
I have
nothing to share, but I'm freaked out by something that's trying to crawl under my house.
No problem. All right.
I have a quick question.
What'd you say, Lisa?
I have a quick question. I might have been asleep or something, but what was the purpose of having the people fast for 3 days and 3 nights?
I think it was
For
praying.
her protection.
Towards the king?
Yeah,
so that he would not kill her when she goes before him without being invited.
So when she went, she told him we've been fasting for, I mean, how did he not,
No,
I'm
he
sorry.
didn't know that.
No, I think it was just really that. No one told him they're fasting to protect you. I think it was just simply fasting so that he wouldn't kill her, so that when she did step before him, that he would lay out his scepter, and he did.
She had sent out word to have all the Jews fast and for her for 3 days. So when she went to him, she would have the strength to go, first of all, and then that the king would accept her. I think
I love that
that's
you
what all
pointed that out, Deborah, that she would have the strength to go, because she was
Oh,
terrified.
yes.
She didn't want to go.
And if you look at what probably her age was also,
Mhm.
very young woman.
At this point, we're thinking she's probably still early teens.
Yes. Yeah. And so, to have the strength and the courage to go. So I think that's what the fasting and going out and asked all the Jews. It also said she had her maidens fast and herself for the 3 days. So I think that was a very important part. I know it doesn't mention God, but that is a God thing. That's
Absolutely.
You're praying for wisdom and praying for strength and
Mhm.
praying
Yeah,
for him to accept her.
right. It doesn't mention his name
No.
specifically, but it mentions fasting. It mentions all of these things that we know is because of God.
Yeah, you can see God through all these pages.
Sure. His timing is perfect, right? His protection.
Right.
Gave her strength to go before the king. The king found favor in her. We can see God even moved in that, like even when she was in the beauty pageant. She didn't even need all the things that everybody else was putting on. She had a natural beauty about her that the Lord had given her, and his the man, the eunuch or whatever that was over her or over those maid servants or whatever, he even found favor with her. All of that's God. They found favor
Yes.
because God changed their mind. God helped them to see things in a certain way.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think
Yeah.
it shows the results of the fasting and prayer, because she comes with a plan. Like, she could have ultimately said right then that when she first came into the inner court and he put down a scepter, she could have said right then, that man beside you is trying to kill all my people. But that would have been foolish. So she just kind of, God gives her the wisdom to just have this banquet, and then again he says, okay, now what do you want? Now tell me. And she's like, almost like just a tease and anticipation, come back tomorrow and I'm gonna have another feast. And it's just that,
Yes.
something good is coming, kind of.
Yeah, she's buttering him up, you know. It is, that was one of the things I was going to ask though, is why do you think she had two banquets? Like, she have the first banquet, give them the food, give them the drink, be kind to them and all of things. Like, so why do you think
I
she
think
didn't ask right then? Why did she have to ask him to come back for a second?
I think at that point, and this is just me, I think it would be to show favor, that he showed favor with her, and she didn't want to just blurt that out. She wanted that to be a setting where it was nice and pleasant before she came and told what's going to happen next. I think this was just to be a pleasant night. So if they would have come and sat and did that and she started blurting out all this stuff, everybody had been on the defense. I think this was to get everybody calm and relaxed and felt like at ease, you know what I mean? So when they come the next night, they're all going to feel, okay, we're going to have another feast. It's going to be all good. But then she's going to have tactfully tell what's going on.
I think it's just, again, the sovereignty of God and his timing, because at this point, Mordecai hasn't been threatened. Like, Haman hasn't come up with his plot to kill Mordecai. I mean, it's still a year away. He's going to kill him, but like right now, all of the culmination of all of the badness hasn't come yet. So it's just kind of leading up to this big aha moment, and God's timing is always right.
Mhm.
The reason why she had two banquets is because I believe God instructed her to have two banquets and to not just go and say, hey, hey, hey. That's what I think.
All right.
What do you think?
I don't know. That's why I asked. I mean, I think I think it was just I mean, I agree with what y'all just said, you know. I think also it helps Mordecai put his guard down, but it helps Esther to understand who they are as two men that she's never really been around. She's only been with the king from time to time, and it's just to go and sleep with him. It's not like they hang out and visit and get to know each other, even though they're married. I don't know that she's had any conversation with Haman at all. I mean, I'm sure she's heard him, but they're not. She's not in a position to sit and know these men. So I think yes, it butters them up. Yes, their guards down, but I think also it gives her an opportunity to kind of know how to say it when it gets time to say it, how to say it, because she's getting to know these guys for who they are as people.
Mhm.
I don't know.
It's
And
given
she's
Haman
getting
a
favor.
false sense of security.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Okay, verse 9. Haman was a happy man as he left the banquet. But when he saw,
Can you just see him like skipping, just kind of like a little kick in the air and, just like, ha ha ha, look at me. I am somebody.
yeah, he got
Special.
invited to the king and queen's banquet, and nobody else even got invited, so it does make him feel special
Mhm.
too. But when he saw Mordecai sitting at the palace gate, not standing up or trembling nervously before him, Haman became furious. However, he restrained himself and went on home. He expected him to be trembling. I'd have probably been trembling. Then
He
Haman
expected him
got
to bow down at him at that point because he knew everybody was going to be killed. He thought he'd seek for mercy, and he didn't.
right. Yeah, that's good. Then Haman gathered together his friends and Zeresh his wife, and boasted to them about his great wealth and his many children. He bragged about the honors the king had given him and how he had been promoted over all the other nobles and officials. Then Haman added, and that's not all. Queen Esther invited only me and the king himself to the banquet she prepared for us, and she has invited me to dine with her and the king again tomorrow. Then he added, but this is all worth nothing as long as I see Mordecai the Jew just sitting there at the palace gate. So Haman's wife Zeresh and all his friends suggested, set up a sharpened pole that stands 75 feet tall, and in the morning ask the king to impale Mordecai on it. When this is done, you can go on your merry way to the banquet with the king. This pleased Haman, and he ordered the pole to be set up.
Oh, that just freaks me out. First off, pride comes before the fall, always. And
Mhm.
this is just a great example of that. But just like such a horrible way to die.
Oh, yeah.
It just freaks me out. I don't like it.
Are y'all familiar? Is everybody familiar with what this about this poll? I think we actually might have talked about it one of the first times, but I don't remember. Are y'all familiar with how this goes down here?
I believe so.
Yes, no, maybe. You got a pole at 75 feet tall. It basically looks like a gigantic pencil, and it's got
Oh,
a
And
point
it's
on the
stuck
top.
on it.
Okay, and they take the people that they're going to kill, and they take it, they put them on that, impale them on that pole,
Mm.
and lift it up in the air, and that
Lean
pole
on
goes
it.
through their midsection, and they're basically draped on each side of the pole, and they're bleeding, and it's a long suffering death, and then the birds come and start eating their flesh and all the things. But it's 75 feet tall, so everyone in the city can see what's taking place. It's a kind of a power move as well. Like, see what happens when you mess with me. And so, for his family to basically say, "Look, just get rid of him. You're already got a plan to get rid of all the Jews, but let's just go ahead and just request to go ahead and get rid of him in the morning since he's such a thorn in your side." And he just loves that idea. yeah, sure, let's just kill him and then I'll go to the banquet that evening. No big deal. And this is where I love the rest of the story.
It was so good.
Mhm.
And he's all like, me, look at me.
hmm
I am somebody. Yeah.
Yeah, he's all excited. I get to go, just me and the king, and he's all happy about it. But then,
And his family's like, yeah, you are. Hey, get rid of this guy that doesn't think you're all that.
right,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. Verse
right.
6.
Do what?
I said, okay, verse 6. But you got something else?
Mm-mm.
I mean, chapter
Chapter
6.
6. Go
Yeah.
for it.
All right. That night, this is so good. That night, the king had trouble sleeping. So he ordered an attendant to bring the book of the history of his reign so it could be read to him. In those records, he discovered an account of how Mordecai had exposed the plot of Bigthana and Teresh, two of the eunuchs who had guarded the door to the king's private quarters. They had plotted to assassinate King Xerxes. What reward or recognition did we ever give Mordecai for this? The king asked. His attendants replied, nothing has been done for him. Who is that in the outer court? The king inquired. As it happened, Haman had just arrived in the outer court of the palace to ask the king to impale Mordecai on the pole he had prepared. So the attendants replied to the king, Haman is out in the court. Bring him in, the king ordered. So Haman came in, and the king said, what should I do to honor a man who pleases me? Haman thought to himself, whom would the king wish to honor more than me? Surely no one. No one is as great as me. So he
This is so
replied,
good.
I know, it's so good. So he replied, if the king wishes to honor someone, he should bring out one of the king's own royal robes, as well as a horse that the king himself has ridden, one with a royal emblem on his head. Let the robes and the horse be handed over to one of the king's most noble officials, and let him see that the man whom the king wishes to honor is dressed in the king's robes and led through the city square on the king's horse. Have the officials shout as they go, this is what the king does for someone he wishes to honor. Excellent, the king says to Haman. Quick, take the robes and my horse and do just that, as you have said, for Mordecai the Jew who sits at the gate of the palace. Leave out nothing you've suggested.
Okay, just stop right there. Oh, it's so good. So good.
So good.
Well, first of all, let's back up to him having trouble sleeping. So
I
he's having
love
trouble
that.
sleeping, and of all things, bring the records. And I'm thinking, what could be more boring than reading the records? Surely that'll
Put
put
you
you
to
to sleep,
sleep.
right? But here we talk about again God's perfect timing. God's perfect timing is shown here because remember, Haman's coming to ask to impale Mordecai on the pole to kill him. But God's perfect timing keeps the king awake so he can't sleep. And then he brings the records of all the book of history that he has to look through. I mean, it's not by accident. It just happens to be that book. And he just happens to open it up to the page that just happens to be Mordecai, the guy that Haman's coming to ask to kill that day, like within minutes, the timing. I mean, it was just within minutes as he's reading it and he says, what did we do for them? They always were rewarded for things like that. That was common practice. For him not to get rewarded was very, very, very unusual. And the fact that Mordecai never even came and asked, well, hey, I never got rewarded. Aren't y'all going to do something for me? He never said it. Well, he never spoke up. And then as he's talking and asking, what did we do? They hear something out in the courtyard. Hey, who's that coming in? Y'all, God's perfect timing. And this again, God's name is not mentioned, but you see him all over the place.
In first thought, and this is just thinking out loud, but when I first read that, I think, well, he was trying to get something boring to go to bed to. Like read the most boring thing he has. But as I'm hearing this, I'm thinking, or he was like, tell me of all the great things that I've accomplished, of the history. Puff me up a little bit. I'm feeling down. We know he battles with some depression, right? So, like, I can't sleep. I'm laying here. I need you to kind of remind me of what has been accomplished. I don't know. That's just a thought.
Yeah, that's good. Never thought about it that way.
Me either.
That's why it's perfect timing.
Perfect timing.
Yeah.
I went back because you had said something about the pole, and in chapter 2, the two men that tried to kill King Xerxes that Mordecai's now being honored for were impaled on the pole.
Yeah, I think that's when we talked about
Yeah.
it before,
Yeah.
but I couldn't remember exactly. Yeah. Yeah, good stuff.
And that's what he brought up. God brought to mind in
Yeah.
that moment.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe it was the pole that Haman was God was bringing it full circle. Yeah, that's
He's
Yeah.
a full circle God.
He
Yep.
is. Very good.
It's a possum that's under my house.
That's what I said. That was my guess.
My husband just
Oh,
texted
how
me back.
funny.
Anyways, now y'all know my drama.
Now we know.
Okay. Are we going to continue on? You want to read? You want me to read?
Yeah, but this part right here, like it's so fun to read this when he says, "Hey, what do you think I should do to honor some? What should the king do to honor this person?" And for him just to automatically think, like
It
y'all
was
have already
him.
mentioned, like it had to be him because he's so self-absorbed,
Yeah.
right? Ever since we started reading in chapter 2 or 3, it's all been about Haman being so self-absorbed. And I look at this and I think we do the exact same thing right now in this day and time. Maybe not in this way, but we can get so self-absorbed. We hear somebody say something and we automatically think they're talking about us.
Good or bad.
Yeah, good or bad. Yeah. Or we walk up and it gets quiet, we automatically think, oh, well, they must have been talking about whatever it is. Or we think that we should be honored in a certain way for something, or we should be acknowledged for something when we feel like we're getting overlooked. We are very self-absorbed people. Now, I do believe that Haman's taking it up a notch.
To another level.
Yeah, he's going to a whole new level. But we are a self-absorbed people. I also thought back in all of this when we're sitting here looking at Haman like he's so mad at one Jewish man that he's ready to annihilate them all. And I was just wondering, I was thinking about like being in recovery and stuff over the years. You see so many things. And so you see a woman who is hurt by one man, but she don't want to be with men anymore. She don't trust any man anymore. You see a person that gets hurt by one person in a church,
Yeah.
and they don't ever want to go back to church again. Or a race, a certain race of people or a certain people group. Now, maybe not going to the extent to kill every one of them, but we see this still today where a person can hold hatred in their heart for a whole group of people because of what one person said or done. And I think that's a good reminder for us as Christians to remember that what we say or do does make a difference in how people see Christianity and how they view the Lord. So we do. I think it's important that we're very careful in how we carry ourselves, what we put on social media and those type of things, because people are always listening and watching, even when we don't think they are.
Mm-hmm.
All right, BJ, keep reading.
Verse 11. So Haman took the robes. You know that he's just got to be sick in his gut. So Haman took the robes and put them on Mordecai, placed him on the king's own horse, and led him through the city square, shouting, "This is what the king does for someone he wishes to honor." Afterward, Mordecai returned to the palace gate, but Haman hurried home dejected and completely humiliated.
I was just wondering, it says in verse 13, like Haman tells his wife what took place. But I'm like, it would have been even better if his wife and his friends had been standing out on the street when he come walking by, pulling him on the horse. Verse 13, when Haman told his wife Zeresh and all his friends what had happened, his wise advisors and his wife said, since Mordecai, this man who has humiliated you, is of Jewish birth, you will never succeed in your plans against him. It will be fatal to continue opposing him. While they were still talking, the king's eunuchs arrived and quickly took Haman to the banquet Esther had prepared.
It seems odd to me that at this point he's not like, maybe I ought to not go to the banquet.
I was thinking the same thing. Like, after all this, he's still going to go to the banquet, but it doesn't sound like he had a choice just now.
Yeah, I mean, probably he didn't, because he was, I mean, when the king and queen invite you to something, you say yes, and he's already going. But I mean, I just feel like if it were me and I just had to eat a whole big crow pie and do something humiliating, and I am like having to really just backtrack and rethink my next steps, I might be coming down with, oh, I'm not feeling so good. Maybe I shouldn't come to the banquet tonight.
I still think, though, that he's so self-centered that he still
Yeah,
thinks he's number one. And
Yeah.
even though that humiliated him and he's so angry, I still think he feels, well, I'm still in, I'm okay. Because the king doesn't know anything that's going on with him yet.
Right.
So I think he still thinks that he's just in with the crowd, or the in crowd.
Yeah.
So at that point, he was still excited about going to that, even though he went through all this humiliation. So I think that's part of he's just self-centered.
Yeah.
And he's so angry, he's probably just thinking, I might not get you right now since they honored you, but I'm still killing you in a year,
Yeah.
Mhm.
but
I also
even,
think
Your
it's
time's
very,
coming.
yeah, I think it's very interesting because in chapter 5, verse 14, Haman's wife and them, Mordecai says this is worth nothing as long as that Jew keeps sitting there at the palace gate. But his wife and his family, they were like, well, sharpen the pole and go get permission to put him on there. And then over here, we're reading in verse 13, the wife and his advisors and all of them say, well, this man who has humiliated you is of Jewish birth. You will never succeed in your plans against him. It would be fatal to continue opposing him. Well, they knew he was a Jew when they said to put him on the pole the first time.
I think that, though, just like evil always says, is they think that they can be the ones that are gonna, like, they could stop it. If they can kill him, then they win. But I think that whenever the plot thickens and he doesn't get to kill him as planned, I think they, just like history keeps showing, the Jews are going to prevail, and I think they realized, oh crap, we were good, we thought you should kill him, and you should have, but since that didn't happen, it's clear that God's hands on him. You're not, you're stewed. Not going to happen. You should back off.
not gonna kill him. Like, he was honored, like the total 180 from what they had advised.
Right.
They're like, oh wait, maybe we should not mess with him.
Yeah. Big contrast.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Hmm.
All right. So,
Anybody want to read?
yeah, somebody else can read. Don't have to be one of us.
Oh, you're doing so good.
There must be some big words coming up. No.
Yeah.
Denise, it's your turn.
All right, chapter 7. So the king and Haman went to Queen Esther's banquet. On this second occasion, while they were drinking wine, the king again said to Esther, tell me what you want, Queen Esther. What is your request? I will give it to you, even if it is half the kingdom. Queen Esther replied, If I have found favor with the king, and if it pleases the king to grant my request, I ask that my life and the lives of my people will be spared. For my people and I have been sold to those who would kill, slaughter, and annihilate us. If we had merely been sold as slaves, I could remain quiet, for what would be too trivial a matter to warrant disturbing the king? I'm like, I'd have been disturbing the king if you were asking me to be a slave. Like y'all get what she's saying? She's like,
Mhm.
spare our lives. Look, if they had just wanted to make us slaves, I wouldn't have even bothered you, king. We would have just been slaves.
Mhm.
But they're not asking to be slaves, they're asking to kill us. Verse 5. Who would do such a thing? King Xerxes demanded. Who would be so presumptuous as to touch you? Esther replied, This wicked Haman is our adversary and our enemy. Haman grew pale with fright before the king and queen. Then the king jumped to his feet in a rage and went out into the palace garden. Haman, however, stayed behind to plead for his life with Queen Esther, for he knew that the king intended to kill him. In despair, he fell on the couch where Queen Esther was reclining. God's timing is perfect. Just as the king was returning from the palace garden, the king exclaimed, Will he even assault the queen right here in the palace before my very eyes? And as soon as the king spoke, his attendants covered Haman's face, signaling his doom. Then Harbona, one of the king's eunuchs, said, Haman has set up a sharpened pole that stands 75 feet tall in his own courtyard. He intended to use it to impale Mordecai, the man who saved the king from assassination. Then impale Haman on it, the king ordered. So they impaled Haman on the pole he had set up for Mordecai, and the king's anger subsided.
It's like just pouring gasoline on the fire.
Mm.
I love how the guy's like, oh, hey, king, there's already a pole set up. It's down there.
Yeah.
Like, it's even in his own courtyard. I mean, it's how convenient.
Yeah.
Well, and they even
Well, and I
told
love
him that.
oh, so go ahead.
No, I was gonna say they even said that he was gonna use it to impale Mordecai.
Yeah. The one that you just honored and let him lay it around, yeah, he was going to use that on him. It's good stuff.
That guy was probably so sick of Haman himself. No, he's probably like, gosh, this guy gets on my nerves. It's all about him, all about him. He walks around here all powerful, all of this, and now he gets a chance of, hey, and he got his name in the Bible.
Mm.
Yeah.
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 Anybody else? All right. Moving on, chapter 8. On that same day, King Xerxes gave the property of Haman, the enemy of the Jews, to Queen Esther. Then Mordecai was brought before the king, for Esther had told the king how they were related. The king took off his signet ring, which he had taken back from Haman, and gave it to Mordecai. And Esther appointed Mordecai to be in charge of Haman's property. Then Esther went again before the king, falling down at his feet and begging him with tears to stop the evil plot devised by Haman the Agagite against the Jews. Again, the king held out the gold scepter to Esther, so she rose and stood before him. Esther said, If it pleases the king, and if I have found favor with him, and if he thinks it is right, and if I am pleasing to him, let there be a decree that reverses the orders of Haman, son of Hammedatha the Agagite, who ordered the Jews throughout all the king's provinces should be destroyed. For how can I endure to see my people and my family slaughtered and destroyed? Then King Xerxes said to Queen Esther and Mordecai the Jew, I have given Esther the property of Haman, and he has been impaled on a pole because he tried to destroy the Jews. Now go ahead and send a message to the Jews in the king's name, telling them, whatever you want, and seal it with the king's signet ring. But remember that whatever has already been written in the king's name and sealed with his signet ring can never be revoked. So on June 25th, the king's secretaries were summoned, and a decree was written exactly as Mordecai dictated. It was sent to the Jews and to the highest officers, the governors and the nobles of all the 127 provinces, stretching from India to Ethiopia. The decree was written in the scripts and languages of all the peoples of the empire, including that of the Jews. The decree was written in the name of King Xerxes and sealed with the king's signet ring. Mordecai sent the dispatches by swift messengers who rode fast horses especially bred for the king's service. The king's decree gave the Jews in every city authority to unite to defend their lives. They were allowed to kill, slaughter, and annihilate anyone, any nationality of or province who might attack them or their children and wives to take the property of their enemies. The day chosen for this event throughout all the provinces of King Xerxes was March 7 of the next year. You want to keep reading or you want to stop there?
I
You
mean, I
gotta love
just,
it.
it's just, again, a full circle moment of, sovereignty. You can't undo it. You can't undo his original decree from Haman, but you can say, no, you go ahead and try. You go ahead and try, and you're going to be impaled, and we're going to take all your stuff, and you're going to die. You're not going to win.
Anybody else have a comment or question or anything?
Well, it seems like before this decree that the Jews wouldn't have fought back. They would have just allowed themselves to die.
Right.
And with this decree, it's telling them that they can fight back.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm. You think back to like, this reminds me of like Hitler,
Mm-hmm.
and taking all the Jewish people, and they didn't fight back. They didn't get to fight back.
No.
They didn't have a chance to fight back.
Mm-hmm.
But just to take them and destroy them the way that they did. And this is what this kind of reminds me of. Like, I think that if God had not intervened, like it would have looked something like that, just going in and just snatching them up in droves and just they wouldn't even have an opportunity.
Well, you see that all through the Bible, though, in the Old Testament, where the Jews were being slaughtered and killed. And even, when they were trying to kill Jesus as a baby, all the kids were killed. And the people just didn't fight back. And that's always, why didn't they take up? Because there were so many. They did not take up arms or whatever and fight back. They allowed it to happen. And some of that I don't understand, but it's crazy to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of that comes from the indoctrination of submitting to authority. And, that's just what they did.
And I wonder too if like their faith was so strong in the Lord, like when they were overtaken like that, like it's not that they wanted to die, but I
No,
just wonder if their faith was strong enough to know that if they did die, they knew that they were, going to be with the Lord.
Maybe.
I don't know. But they just, even that though, because in the Old Testament, like there were so many hoops to jump through to be found approved or whatever, following the law. But they did it. I mean, gosh, they followed all the laws and did all things, and Mhm.
it's
It's a
true.
lot to think on.
Yeah.
Just a lot.
All right,
Good,
verse.
though.
I'm sorry.
I said, but it's good though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Verse 13. A copy of this decree was to be issued as law in every province and proclaimed to all peoples, so that the Jews would be ready to take revenge on their enemies on the appointed day. So, urged on by the king's command, the messengers rode out swiftly on fast horses bred for the king's service. The same decree was also proclaimed in the fortress of Susa. Then Mordecai left the king's presence, wearing the royal robe of blue and white, the great crown of gold, and an utter cloak of fine linen and purple. And the people of Susa celebrated the new decree. The Jews were filled with joy and gladness and were honored everywhere. In every province and city, wherever the king's decree arrived, the Jews rejoiced and had a great celebration and declared a public festival and holiday. And many of the people of the land became Jews themselves, for they feared what the Jews might do to them. And just see also, like, there's a contrast here of you've got Mordecai the Jew that is about to be killed, and no one is seeing him as royalty. No one is recognizing him as, he's not the king, but as royalty to wear this robe and this crown and all of these things. And it just kind of reminds me of Jesus in a way, like that contrast of that you have Jesus that is, they're planning to kill. How many times did he go to a place and they're trying to stone him or they're wanting to kill him or whatever, and then the Lord snatches him up and moves him somewhere else, and then yes, they do kill him, but he comes back on the third day and he's got that crown on his head. And we look at Mordecai here, who is a Jew, and now he was supposed to have been killed, but then here he is walking out in the royal robes, representing the Jewish people, which are representing the Lord.
I think it even, circling back to Zeresh, his Haman's wife, where like there's this ongoing pattern that like she knows, yeah, you better back off. You're not going to win from that. And I think that it wasn't just them. I think that was nationally, internationally known. That, and now especially when you start seeing them being honored and they have this backing of the king saying they're gonna fight you, you're not just gonna get to go, annihilate them. Then I think they were like, yeah, maybe no, maybe we'll just not do that.
Right. I was just trying to think back, and I shouldn't even open this up because I don't even remember enough of it. I'd have to like look through my scriptures, but just sitting here, just thinking of all the things that have already happened before this time, like in history, how many times they've seen, the Jewish people, God protect them, and they came out as victors over and over and over again. And they knew their history, like you said, like they know all of that. All right, chapter 9.
So on March 7th, the 2 decrees of the king were put into effect. On that day, the enemies of the Jews had hoped to overpower them, but quite the opposite happened. It was the Jews who overpowered their enemies. The Jews gathered in their cities throughout all the king's provinces to attack anyone who tried to harm them. But no one could make a stand against them, for everyone was afraid of them. And all the nobles of the provinces, the highest officers, the governors, and the royal officials helped the Jews for fear of Mordecai. For Mordecai had been promoted in the king's palace, and his fame spread throughout all the provinces as he became more and more powerful. So the Jews went ahead on the appointed day and struck down their enemies with the sword. They killed and annihilated their enemies and did as they pleased with those who hated them. In the fortress of Susa itself, the Jews killed 500 men. They also killed Pharashandantha, Dalphon, Aspa, Poratha, Adalia, Aridatha, Permashta, Arisai, Ardai, and Vazatha.
Good job.
Good job.
Thanks, y'all. That rocked it.
I'm glad you read this chapter.
You did that on purpose. You are not a good friend.
I had no idea.
10 sons of Haman, son of Hammedatha, the enemy of the Jews, but they did not take any plunder. That very day, when the king was informed of the number of people killed in the fortress of Susa, he called for Queen Esther. He said, the Jews have killed 500 men in the fortress of Susa alone, as well as Haman's 10 sons. If they have done that here, what has happened to the rest of the provinces? But now, what more do you want? It will be granted to you. Tell me, and I will do it. Esther responded, if it pleases the king, give the Jews in Susa permission to do it again tomorrow, as they have done today, and let the bodies of Haman's 10 sons be impaled on the pole. So the king agreed, and the decree was announced in Susa, and they impaled the bodies of Haman's 10 sons. Then the Jews at Susa gathered together on March 8th and killed 300 more men, and again they took no plunder. Meanwhile, the other Jews throughout the king's provinces had gathered together to defend their lives. They gained relief from all their enemies, killing 75,000 of those who hated them, but they did not take any plunder. This was done throughout the provinces on March 7th and on March 8th. On March 8th they rested, celebrating their victory with a day of feasting and gladness. The Jews of Susa killed their enemies on March 7th and again on March 8th, then rested on March 9th, making that their day of feasting and gladness. So to this day, rural Jews living in remote villages celebrate an annual festival and holiday on the appointed date in late winter, when they rejoice and send gifts of food to each other. Mordecai recorded these events and sent letters to the Jews near and far throughout the provinces of King Xerxes, calling on them to celebrate an annual festival on these 2 days. He told them to celebrate these days with feasting and gladness, and by giving gifts of food to each other and presents to the poor. This would commemorate a time when the Jews gained relief from their enemies, when their sorrow was turned into gladness and their mourning into joy. So the Jews accepted Mordecai's proposal and adopted this annual custom. Haman, son of Hammedatha the Agagite, the enemy of the Jews, had plotted to crush and destroy them on the date determined by casting lots. The lots were called Purim. But when Esther came before the king, he issued a decree causing Haman's evil plot to backfire, and Haman and his sons were impaled on a sharpened pole. That is why this celebration is called Purim, because it is the ancient word for casting lots. So because of Mordecai's letter and because of what they had experienced, the Jews throughout the realm agreed to inaugurate this tradition and to pass it on to their descendants and to all who became Jews. They declared they would never fail to celebrate these 2 prescribed days at the appointed time each year. These days would be remembered and kept from generation to generation and celebrated by every family throughout the provinces and cities of the empire. This festival of Purim would never cease to be celebrated among the Jews, nor would the memory of what happened ever die out among their descendants. Short note that still today, all of these many years later, in fact, just this past week, was the festivals of Purim, and it was celebrated by Jews all over the world. I think that's just fascinating. And there are so many times throughout Scripture where things no longer happen, or this place is gone, or this place is gone, and this person's dead, this people group's dead, whatever. But again, with the Jews, and like specifically like with this festival and with Passover, like those things don't ever stop. Even to this day in 2026, it is still being celebrated as recorded in the book of Esther before Jesus ever even came to the earth. Anyways, okay. Verse 29.
Hey, hold on just a second.
Okay.
They say that when they celebrate, that it's like a tradition that they read the book of Esther during the celebration.
Mhm.
They also will dress up in costumes and stuff as if back in that day and time celebrating, and then have all the food and the gifts and pass it out to everyone. And so it's like a going back in time, I guess. And they give food and drinks to the poor.
We should do a festival of Purim retreat and dress up and do all the things. That would be so fun.
Mm.
That would be fun.
Uh-huh.
Who's going to wear just the crown?
Denise is like, no.
Let me think about that one.
Think
all
it's
right.
fun. Anyways, okay. Verse 29. Then Queen Esther, the daughter of Abihail, along with Mordecai the Jew, wrote another letter putting the queen's full authority behind Mordecai's letter to establish the festival of Purim. Letters wishing peace and security were sent to the Jews throughout the 127 provinces of the empire of Xerxes. These letters established the festival of Purim, an annual celebration of these days at the appointed time decreed by both Mordecai the Jew and Queen Esther. The people decided to observe this festival just as they had decided for themselves and their descendants to establish the times of fasting and mourning. So the command of Esther confirmed the practices of Purim, and it was all written down in the records.
I want to bring up how when you were reading it kept saying when they were killing all these people, they never took any plunder.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering. We know God's name's not mentioned here, but we know God was with them. And you know, when you read back in the Old Testament, like even with Joshua and different ones, the Lord would speak to him and he would say, you know, basically, I'm on your side. Like I've got you, I'm going before you. And he would give them instructions. You know, you do certain things and I'm going to show you favor during this thing. And he would tell them to take the plunder or not to take the plunder. And I just wonder, so often it was said, and they didn't take the plunder. And as you were reading that, I was thinking, I wonder if the Lord spoke to them and said, you know, I'm going to go before you and I'm going to hand these who hate you over to you, but don't take the plunder. I'm just curious. I mean, we don't know. We won't know the answer to that till we get to heaven. But also, they may have just not taken the plunder just because it wasn't about that. It was just about them.
Defended.
Yeah, they were just defending themselves and not for just in the moment, but for generations to come. That's, you know, I think it's important where it says it got that they killed the 10 sons of Haman. Wow, because those guys, they would have, you know, something to they'd be angry from generations to come, you know, and try to kill the Jews because they killed their father, you know.
Mhm.
Yep. Anybody got anything you want to add?
Lisa, you looking at my face?
Yours and hers both.
Yep.
Someone comment something.
In my Bible, it says Esther was a Jewish woman who broke through all cultural norms, even what was expected of her as a Persian queen, stepping outside her expected role to risk her own life to help God's people. Whatever your place in life, God can use you. Be open, available, and ready because God may use you to do what others are afraid to ever consider.
Mm.
And I think that's pretty cool because that's what Esther did. And if we even stepped out in faith just a little bit, what we could accomplish. And that's, I mean, wow, what a woman.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's good.
And she knew she needed support.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she asked people to pray, asked the Jews to pray and fast.
And
It
it
didn't
was
say
never
pray.
about her.
Yeah,
You
but
know,
yeah,
a lot of people that have a lot are very pretty women and they have a lot. It's all about them. Esther was not that way. She was a person about others and trying to help others, I think. And that just really speaks to me. And she was open to God's will at such a young age.
Good.
So,
All right.
Chapter
Chapter
10.
10.
King Xerxes King Xerxes imposed a tribute throughout his empire, even to the distant coastlands. His great achievements and the full account of the greatness of Mordecai, whom the king had promoted, are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Media and Persia. Mordecai, the Jew, became the prime minister with authority next to that of King Xerxes himself. He was very great among the Jews, who held him in high esteem because he continued to work for the good of his people and to speak up for the welfare of all their descendants. The end.
Humble
Mm.
yourself before the Lord, and He will lift you up.
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah, good.
That's good. We
Very-
finished it, y'all. We did it.
Yay.
Woohoo!
So good. Anybody got anything else they want to bring up? Say, talk, discuss, questions?
I think most of us, we don't always listen, and we try to force things because it's what we want. If we would use their example and do what God wants, look what He did to their lives and how He turned them around. And I mean, not only saving the people, but putting Mordecai in, next to him, and Esther being the queen. I mean, if we follow what God wants us to do, I think we would accomplish more instead of fighting. And I think a lot of times God gives us a plan or tells us what our purpose is, and we go, no, God, and we have our own plan. And I think if we would really listen to what He's saying, what we could do, it'd be amazing.
Mhm.
Yes, it would.
Mhm.
There's a quote in this book. It's called Draw the Circle, and there's a circle maker. And Matt Batterson says in this, somewhere in there, he says, he talks about if you will be obedient and pray and be consistent in your prayer life. He says
Mhm.
God will take you places you never thought you'd go. He will bring people in your life that you have no business meeting. Like he like just what you just said, Deborah, like if we would just be obedient and continue to pray and ask for guidance, like He will do amazing things with our lives that we never saw coming.
Absolutely.
You've been listening to Table Talk with BJ Garrett and Denise Bowens. To support this ministry through prayer or giving, visit our website at unashamedww.com. May you be encouraged, rooted in truth, and unashamed.